So I'm going to do a review of the new Officio Assassinorum Dataslate. And I would have to say this is one of the Dataslates that I've been absolutely waiting for it for years, because I thought the Imperial Assassins were one of the more exciting, cool units, but they were stuck in Grey Knights, and so you kind of had to play Grey Knights to use them. They used to have their own codex and then a little pamphlet back in like 2nd and 3rd edition, I think. So now you can use them again. They have their own data slate, which actually means you could field them with any army. They are considered allies, battle brother allies of any of the Imperial armies. So that's kind of cool. So I'm going to go through the data sheet, talk about what's changed a little bit, some ideas, and roll from there. So just to start with, the standard data sheet, and it has one formation in it. Everything in this army is considered an Imperial army, so you can field them with Imperium. The detachment itself is a unique kind of detachment, so it is the Officio Assassinorum Detachment, and that detachment will consist of one assassin. That's it. It's all that's allowed to be in it, but we're talking 7th edition, so you can field as many of these as you want point-wise. As long as you've got the points, you can field them. The downside to this is, as it currently stands, in most tournaments, you're seeing tournament organizers are really limiting the number of detachments you can take, and some of them are even saying you must take one combined arms and up to one ally or something like that, which means you simply can't take an assassin because they're not an ally and they're not a combined arms. They're an assassin's detachment. Now there is one way to work around this, and I'll talk about it in a second. But if you take an assassin just as his own or her own detachment, they have a command benefit that gives you a bonus victory point should you kill your enemy's warlord with the assassin. And that's in a mission that gives victory points. But since most of them give points for warlord, this would give you 2. So the first thing in the data slate is the formation, and the execution force formation is, it's 2 things in my opinion. It's a fluff item. It is the execution force from Nemesis, the book, Horus Heresy book, and so it has the same units in it, one of each of the major assassin temples, and it leaves out the 2 that don't have rules, Vanus and Venorum or something, the poisoning assassins. But it's got the 4 major ones in it, and it lets you field them as a formation. So for this formation, you have to have one of each of the major assassins, so Callidus, Culexus, Eversor, and Vindicare. And if you take them, they're a formation. Everyone in it gets preferred enemy warlord, and they get that bonus victory point when they kill the enemy warlord. So what does this do? It gives you a fluff formation, but in a way, I think this is GW handing something over to tournament gamers, because if you wanted to field assassins, you could field a formation. Many tournaments are letting you do that, and you'd simply have to field one of each of them, and it's less than 600 points, and you get every assassin. Alright, if you don't do that and you just field the assassins, let's kind of just run through what's changed. To start with, major changes that probably mean a lot. All of the assassin stat lines are the same. Base stat lines are the same. Big changes, they now have wounds 3, which is pretty important, I think. One of the problems assassins had is they were 2 wound characters, and that kind of hurt. All of the assassins are infantry characters. They all have a special rule called Independent Operative, and that may be a game changer in some ways. It certainly meets with fluff, but it basically says that the assassins can never be joined by other models. So even though they're characters, you can't join an independent character to them. All of the assassins have lightning reflexes, which gives them a 4 up invulnerable save. And they essentially have assault grenades, because they always fight at initiative when they charge into cover. And all of the assassins penalize opponents by 2 when they go against their lookout sir when those checks are made. So that's sort of the universal rules for them, and then we'll just run through each group. So the Vindicare assassin, this was your sniper. He was pretty awesome. They changed his rules some. I think in some ways they made him better. In some ways they kind of knocked him down. But some of what they knocked down probably had to be just for rational reasons. So he still has his defensive grenades, which if you remember now, remember this because this is a 7th edition change. Defensive grenades are strength 1 blinding. And so he could throw that instead of shooting and knock an opponent down to weapon skill, ballistic skill 1 if he thought they were going to fail an initiative check. And that might be useful. It also protects him against charges. You don't get your charge bonus. He comes with a close combat weapon, so this is a big change from the previous Vindicare assassin because now he has a pistol and a close combat weapon. So he always ends up with a minimum of 5 attacks in close combat. You usually want to keep him out of close combat, but he's a effective close combat guy. He just doesn't have any AP. Like all assassins, he's going to be fearless. He has infiltrate. He has move through cover, and he has stealth. And he's the only assassin with stealth, so he's protected. He's going to have a minimum of a 4-up save anywhere in the game, but it could be better depending on the terrain he's in. It also has a special rule. It's the same rule, but now it's specified. Dead shot, which means when he hits, it's a precision shot. People might argue this, but it's a precision shot when he hits. And then he doesn't have any other special rules himself. He does have his Exodus rifle, which the range went from 36 inches to now 72 inches, so he should be able to shoot almost across any board with no problem. And it has special ammo, and it's a sniper weapon. He also has the pistol. You know, he might use that particularly since he has infiltrate. But it's less important now because he's got an amazing range. And he's out of range of an awful lot of shooting attacks. So the weapon has 3 special kinds of ammo, almost identical to before in many ways. The shield breaker, you get no invulnerable save. Against the shield breaker, you have no save of any kind because he ignores cover, invul, and hits AP2. So it wounds on a 4-up. Always going to be that way. Turbo penetrator is strength 10. And it does D3 wounds. Used to do 2 wounds, so now it's statistically the same, but you could end up doing 3 wounds on 1 hit that ignores cover and is AP2. And then the Hellfire rounds, these things are the ones that wound on a 2-up. And then I mentioned already, he's got a spy mask that gives him ignore cover. One thing I should have mentioned, all the assassins are toughness 4, so they still suffer from the instant death rule if they get hit by things like battle cannons. The Callidus assassin, stat line, the same as previously mentioned, with 3 wounds. They have the same rules, so fearless, they're fleet, they have infiltrate, they have hit and run, and with initiative 7 basically means you only fail hit and run 1 in 6 times. And it has precision strikes, but this one doesn't have a special precision strike rule. It means, you know, if you roll a 6 while in close combat, you must pick who it hits. They have that independent operative rule like they all do. And then it has polymorphine, which says that you will infiltrate, because it has the infiltrate rule, and you can put it up to 1 inch away. As long as it's outside of 1 inch from an enemy model, whether they can see you or not, you're on the board. So you can put the Callidus assassin right down next to an opponent and then flame them on round 1. Or they can walk in on your opponent's deployment zone, which is an interesting deployment. I don't think anything else has that rule. They also subtract 3 from the reserve roll, but with this Reign of Confusion special rule, and that's pretty cool. It also forces your opponent to re-roll for seize the initiative. So the Callidus assassin's pretty nice. The -3 on the reserve roll, you know, that's brutal. That means you come in on a 6. Potentially, you could push it over 6, but I don't think the rules would let you do that. And now the Neural Shredder. Neural Shredder used to be strength, like 8 versus leadership, and that was terrible because most people's leadership was too high to make it worthwhile. Now it's an AP2 poisoned weapon template. it says it always wounds on a 4-up, so it got better. And so you can do with a Callidus Assassin what you used to be able to do with Flamers of Tzeentch, which is you can put them down right next to an opponent's unit by deep striking or infiltrating, and then just flame them with an AP2 weapon that wounds on a 4-up. So that's pretty nice. They have the Phase Sword, and the Phase Sword got modified so that now it is AP2 and ignores invul saves on a 6. Used to be that it for a while there it ignored all invul saves, and then they changed that to just ignoring armor, but now it causes what's called a phasing wound on a wound roll of 6. One thing that's unclear is if a phasing wound always wounds. It doesn't say. It just says that each successful wound roll of 6 made by a phase sword results in a phasing wound. Invulnerable saves cannot be taken against that. Does that mean if you go up against a Wraith Knight with a Callidus Assassin, do they wound them on a 6? And the way the rules are written, they do, because a 6 causes a phasing wound. Callidus Assassins now also have poison blades, which are kind of nice because that was one of the issues they had with the previous. That was one of the issues they had. They couldn't go up against really high toughness guys because they couldn't hurt them. Now they get these poison blades, which wound on a 3-up and are rending. And it's also worth noting that, like the Vindicare Assassin, the Callidus has 2 close combat weapons, at least. And so a pistol and a close combat weapon, or blades, and so they get an extra attack also. So they're basically base 5. The next one coming up is the Eversor Assassin, and I actually, this is one of my favorite models. He had a lot of problems in the previous edition, because he had a foot slogget across the board, and at the start of 7th edition he became kind of cool because you could add independent characters to him and stick him in a transport. Now you can still stick him in a transport, as you could with any assassin, but he still has to foot slog. The big change, though, what makes Eversors, I think, useful again, is they have infiltrate, so he can start 12 to 18 inches away from an opponent. He can't attack in round 1, so there's no reason to start him 12 inches away unless you just really want to. He's got a great charge range. We'll go into that in a second, but yeah, you can start him pretty close. 18 inches means on round 2 he could charge with no problem. So the Eversor Assassin, this guy in some ways got better, in other ways he got a little bit downgraded, but I think of all the assassins, he got some of the better improvements to what he was, though he's far from the best. So what he has, he starts with a power sword, so power sword is in his armory. He has melt-the-bombs, so he can do a lot of damage there. And then he has the fearless rule. He gets feel no pain. He's the only assassin with feel no pain. So now he is harder to kill than he used to be, because with the feel no pain rule at a 5-up, not a 6-up like the Sin Skin used to give, and 3 wounds and an invul save of a 4-up, he's much harder to kill. He has infiltrate, so you can put him down in your opponent's deployment zone if you want. He gets Furious Charge, which gives him Strength 5 on the charge, and he has Move Through Cover. And then other rules, they brought back the Bio Meltdown. The Grey Knights version didn't have this, but now when you kill him for good, he blows up and does Strength 5, AP nothing hits to units within D6 inches, everyone. He has Fast Shot, so Eversor got kind of cool with this. He gets to shoot 4 times at a single target, and I believe he gets this while doing Overwatch also. He also has a plethora of special war gear. He has the Executioner pistol still. And this one got a little bit of a downgrade. Now it's a bolter and needle pistol. He gets his 4 shots, he's probably going to hit. And it's poisoned with no AP. It used to be AP1 or AP2. It used to ignore armor. Now it doesn't. So it's a little weaker there. but it gets 4 shots, so it's hard to say what'll pay off more. Depends who you're attacking. He still has Friends on, which is improved. It gives him a charge range of 3d6, adding all the dice together. And since he has moved through cover, he ignores cover on the charge, and he ignores the need for grenades because he has lightning reflexes. And that gives him a bonus of 3 attacks on the charge when he charges in, so much better. Basically giving him 8 attacks on the charge. So that's pretty nice. He has a Neuro Gauntlet still, so that's his claws here. And those changed. They used to be Lightning Claws. Now they are Neuro Gauntlet, which has no AP, but it has Shred and Fleshbane, so he's more likely to wound, but he doesn't have an armor piercing with it. He has the Power Sword, though, so depending on who you're attacking, he might be using the Power Sword, he might be using the Neuro Gauntlet. He has a Sentinel Array, which is this little thing that connects to his backpack. That allows him to fire ballistic skill at Overwatch at his full ballistic skill, so pretty nice. Okay. Last assassin to deal with is a Culexus. And Culexus is one that I don't think I saw much of. Has all the standard rules of the assassins with the addition of preferred enemy psychers. And then it gets all these very cool buffs that make the Culexus assassin worth taking in many situations. It has Infiltrate, so you can put it down near your opponent. It has Life Drain, which says that it ignores armor saves. Doesn't give it an AP, though, so if it were attacking vehicles and somehow penned it, it wouldn't get the AP for the explosion. It also causes instant death on a 6, and any Psyker takes instant death when it takes wounds from a Culexus. It has this Psychic Abomination rule, which is what makes these brutal. They reduce the leadership on Psykers by 3 if they're within 12 inches, and that's any Psyker. And then they only let Psykers they don't let them generate warp charges if they're within 12 inches, and they only let them use warp charges if they roll a 6, which means on any level 2 power, for example, they were going to perils to use the power. So it makes Psykers kind of very difficult to use around a Culexus, and they should be. And then it also cancels out all maledictions and blessings if the Psyker moves within 12 inches or the Culexus moves within 12 inches of the active psychic power. So that's pretty cool. I haven't checked, but that might nullify force weapons. And then they just carry the Animus Specularum, which is the big skull hat. And this is an interesting weapon. It's Strength 5, AP 1, and it gets to shoot depending on how many warp charges. It's shot during the psychic phase. And so what it gets is it fires for every psychic charge you use, for every dice you use. So if you rolled up to 3 of your own dice, plus for every psyker within 12 inches, it gets to shoot. Now, interesting tactic, if you took a Culexus assassin and put it surrounded by a whole bunch of psykers, it gets to shoot for everyone that's near it. If you put 2 Culexus assassins down and surrounded them by psykers, they both get to shoot for every psyker near them, at least as it's currently written. And it's AP 1, so those are decently powerful shots. They have Ethereum, which says that all attacks against them and shooting shots are done at Weapon Skill Ballistic Skill 1. This is different. I don't remember if I mentioned this for the Culexus and the Callidus. The Callidus, when they infiltrate, can only be hit by snapshots. The Culexus, however, can only be hit by Ballistic Skill 1. So there's a difference there. And then it has Psych Out grenades, which can be shot in the shooting phase, and these cause any unit that gets hit to take a perils, if it has a Psyker or a Brotherhood of Psykers or Sorcerers in it. So that's not bad. And it basically works like defensive grenades when used against Psykers. So things to think about, big changes. I think going back to the beginning, Vindicare Assassin, he can still shoot attached weapons, so he can shoot the quad gun, for example, with Deadeye shot. But it does have Skyfire, so he's snap firing it unless he's shooting at flyers. But they couldn't jink it if he shot a flyer with it. The Callidus Assassin, the fact that they can only be hit by snapshots means that blasts and flamer weapons can't touch it, kind of like Death Leaper on round 1 when it comes in. The Eversor Assassin, now that he can infiltrate, means he can get pretty close to your opponent, and with a really long charge range, it makes him much better. And then the Culexus Assassin, I think, is the one that you're going to start seeing people use. Unfortunately, it's not for sale on GW's website right now, and you can't even get it on eBay. But it's a pretty useful anti-psyker army. I mean, if you wanted to take it up against armies that, say, had demon summoning spam, it would be hilarious, because it would probably prevent most of that from happening. And that's where we stand now. Well, one last thing to mention. Because of the way the rules are now written, and you can take as many detachments as you want, you could theoretically field an army of nothing but assassins. So if I owned them, and I don't, but I could field at 2,000 points basically 14 Eversor assassins. Maybe not point effective, but would do a lot of damage to your opponent, and with infiltrate and outflank and stuff, might actually win some games.